Hi, I'm Dr. Daphne Bascom. Welcome back to the Thrive on Plants podcast. Today's guest is someone I have admired for years, Andrea Donsky. Andrea is a registered holistic nutritionist, researcher, author, and the founder of Morphus, a platform and supplement line dedicated to helping women navigate the menopause transition with science, honesty, and empowerment. Andrea has been a leading voice in wellness for over 2 decades. You might know her from her book, Unjunk Your Junk Food, or from the way she has reframed the conversation around perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, not as something to survive, but as something we can understand on our own and thrive through. In this episode, we talk about what no one taught me in medical school, the 103 plus symptoms of menopause, and how data, community, and education are changing the game for midlife women everywhere. So take a deep breath, get comfy, and let's get into this powerful conversation with Andrea Donsky. Andrea, I have been following you for years, and I appreciate all the things that you are doing for women's health in general, but I'm not certain that everyone in our community knows who you are. So would you mind introducing yourself and just sharing what brought you to this point in time from when as a registered dietitian nutritionist, when you first started talking about health, the books you published, all the work you were doing around toxin awareness to really focusing on women going through the midlife transition.
Yes, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for having me, Daphne. I'm very happy to be here. And I have been a nutritionist for more than 20 years now. And I would say when I just years ago, when I started getting interested in health and wellness, that's when I started. I had some other companies that we started in this space. And I was always an advocate for really understanding what was happening to our bodies. What are we putting in our bodies? What are we putting on our bodies? And that led me to write a book back in 2011 called Unjunk Your Junk Food. When I turned 47 and I got my first hot flash, I thought, oh, am I in menopause? Like, wait a minute. Like, I knew nothing about it. Even though my job had always been to understand what we're putting in and on our body, I actually knew nothing about this phase of life. So I thought, I have a business partner and I've been partners with her for now over 25 years. And I said, you know what? I think we need to pivot and do things around midlife about women who are in perimenopause and menopause because I thought, well, if I don't know much about it, I didn't even know the word perimenopause existed, which I know I hear from so many of us. And I don't know if that's your story as well, but not knowing anything about what happens to us in this third act of our life, I thought, wait a minute, I really need to dive into the research. I need to understand. I need to understand from women in our community. What are the symptoms? Like the only thing that came to mind for me was a hot flash, but we now know, according to our research, there are 103 plus different symptoms. So hot flashes, although it's the most synonymous with menopause, it's actually not even the number one symptom. So I thought, okay, if I don't know a lot, I'm guessing a lot of other women don't know a lot either. And that's really what led me to really just start Morphus and to start doing the research, start to conduct research and start to understand what's happening to us so I could learn and then I could share what I learned with everyone else.
And it's amazing that with your background, and my story is the same. The word perimenopause, really not part of the vernacular. Menopause definitely is just as part of clinical training, but no one prepares you for what this means. And I think your story is it exemplifies the story I hear from many women, but I love that you took action.
It's my personality. It's just kind of who I am. But yes, like and yourself, right? Like it's we can hear what's happening to us, but then if we don't actually take action to understand it, then how are we going to help ourselves and everyone else that we speak to on a regular basis?
But not many of us are entrepreneurial enough to start what's essentially a combined supplement company, research company. So can you just share a little bit about how you got to Morphus and what that means and what what are your core values and your mission for the company in terms of making this so that the next generation of women understand what's going to happen to their bodies as they transition through their 30s to their 90s?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So what kind of what led us to start Morphus was I first started by doing the research and going down the rabbit hole of, okay, so what is happening and what's going on? And then really it was my story because I had had such bad hot flashes. Like I had had a lot of symptoms. Like now I know looking back what my story is. I had my third baby at 41. And then at 42, I like my symptoms never went away, any of my postpartum symptoms. And in fact, a lot of them were getting worse and they were changing. And I'm like, okay, what's happening to my body? And for a good 5 years, I had no idea. And I would ask everyone around me, my friends. So I'm in my mid 50s now. And I would ask my friends who were around, who were born, all of us born in 1970. And I'd be like, are you feeling what I'm feeling? Like, are you gaining weight? And are your moods all over the place? Is everyone else upsetting you? Like you wake up okay, and then all of a sudden you like at the drop of a hat, you're like, yelling at someone, and they're like, nope, I don't know what you mean. I don't know what you mean. And I was like, wait, is this just me who's going through this? Because I felt so alone and nobody could relate to what I was going through. And I thought, okay, when I started doing that research, I'm like, well, it's not just me. There are thousands of women who are in the same situation as me. So I said to my business partner, Randy, I was like, okay, let's start a new company and let's educate people. But at the same time, I was trying to figure out solutions for myself for my hot flashes. And this was, I guess, a few years before that. And I thought, I need to figure out what's happening to me because if I don't find a solution for these hot flashes that were happening, what seemed like every hour on the hour, they'd last like at least
Oh.
30 seconds to a minute. They were so bad. And you know what's interesting, Daphne, is because I was in the space, in the health and wellness space, I was very hard on myself because I thought to myself, well, how is this happening to me? This is what I do for a living. And, I'm a nutritionist and I'm watching what I eat and I exercise and like all the things that we're told to do all the time, they just weren't working for me anymore.
Right.
And they worked for me for a long time, but they weren't working for me anymore. So in my head, I always thought, well, I'm not going to have any symptoms of menopause when I go through it because I'm already doing everything right. Well, I couldn't have been worse from the
Yeah.
like farther from the truth, really. I was like, I literally had I joke, I think I had like almost all of the symptoms. Like I just had so many different symptoms. So I set myself out on a mission. I looked at my husband one day when it was particularly bad, and I looked at him and I said, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't do this. I can't live like this. This is really, really brutal. So I'm going to find solutions. And that's when I started figuring out things through still maintaining what I was doing with nutrition, changing the way I was exercising, but also looking at supplements. And then I experimented with a ton of different supplements until I finally found ones that worked for me. And that's when I went to Randy and I was like, okay, we need to do something in this space and to really help women. So that's what helped us decide to sell supplements. And then we launched our supplements in 2022. We started working on the company in 2020. We launched it in 2021, and we didn't launch supplements until 2022. So it was
Okay.
kind of like an evolution as things kind of progress. But and also I'm very particular about what I put in my body. And I didn't want to put things in my body that just because they were in 99% of the supplements out there for women in menopause, which we call them like grandfathered ingredients that have been around forever and there's research on them. But I also wanted to make sure that the ingredients that we did use in our supplements, first of all, I dot my I's, I cross my T's, and I want to make sure there's no, effect on our liver, or there's no effect on our hormones. Because at that time, even when we started it, and we know everything's changing now with the WHI study and hormones itself, it's just not my lane hormones. So I stick in my lane, which is nutrition, lifestyle supplements, and research. And I always leave the topic of hormones and hormone therapy to the experts.
Okay.
So I wanted to look at things that I wanted to study and and launch products that were very much in my realm of understanding and what I was using for many, many years. And so supplements was that area that was really key for me. So finding supplements that I felt safe to ingest and that I would feel comfortable recommending to other people was what took us quite a while to launch Morphus. But then when we did, now I'm super proud of it because I'm like, I take these products myself. Randy takes them, right? And I'm happy to recommend it to other women because I know I've done the due diligence on the ingredients.
And so you just shared so many things, and I'd like to unpack them a little bit at a time, if that's okay.
Yes, please.
First and foremost, 103 symptoms of menopause. Now, the women who've been through my menopause mastery program, I usually direct them to your site because
Thank
I
you.
think that uh, there's the typical menopause symptoms, but can you share a little bit more about what are the most common symptoms that you're finding through your questionnaires and how you're actually collecting this information and understanding the demographics of the women who are completing the surveys to better reframe what are the typical symptoms of perimenopause and menopause, because hot flashes are not number one.
They're not. They're number 10 according to our research, which is interesting. So, okay, so I'm gonna go back for a second just to understand, just to explain why we launched the surveys. So
Mhm.
I've always been obsessed with data. I love marketing research, and if I was better in math, I probably would have been like a marketing research expert, analyzing data, looking at it, and like nowadays it's so much
You're doing it
easier.
now.
Right, like, I always said, one day I'm gonna launch or do research that mattered, and I'm doing it now, but nowadays, it's so much easier than it was years ago, right? Because now we have, like, you know, we have AI that can help us, like, determine things, and we actually have an amazing team of analysts who help us look at the data itself. So, it was, like, several years ago, I was at a party with my husband, and I met this woman, and she told me that, we're catching up, it was an old friend, and she told me that she was working on an app for menopause symptoms. And my initial reaction at the time, this was before I started Morphus, I was like, "An app for menopause symptoms? Like, don't you need a lot of apps?" Like, in my mind, I thought like, "Oh, there's like 3 or 4 symptoms." Like, I had no clue. And she was like, "No, no, Andrea, there are like 34 to 40 symptoms." And I was like, "Oh, that's a lot of symptoms." So the way my brain works is I went back and I started like this file and I started tracking all the different symptoms. And I was looking at medical journals. I was looking at, talking to friends, looking on social media,
Mhm.
just kind of seeing what I could gather if that women were experiencing. And I started tracking the different symptoms, and quickly we got to like 80 plus different symptoms. So for the longest time, I would say aren't 34 to 40, there are 80 plus or 85 different symptoms. And then I thought, well, why don't we actually go to the women in our community and ask them what they're experiencing? Because that to me, at this point, I had started TikTok and I was like, okay, I have an amazing community on TikTok. Let's ask the women in our community what they're experiencing. So we launched our first signs and symptoms, or our first survey called the Signs and Symptoms of Menopause. And we were published last year in the journal Menopause, which is very exciting. And
Congratulations.
at that time, thank you, we had about, I think it was 23 or 2,400 responses. We're over 5,000, like 5,200 responses right now. So it's ongoing. We're constantly collecting the data and things change as we go. And what we found is like, like we were saying, is hot flashes aren't number one, they're number 10. But what are the number one, number two, like what are the different symptoms that women are experiencing? And what we noticed or what we found out is that the number one symptom is fatigue and a
Mhm.
lack of energy. And that's over 70% of women that are experiencing it. So to answer your question of how we collect the data is our community, our social media. We have partners that we've collaborated with. So I have a few doctors and influencers in the space who wanted to understand different things when it came to menopause. So we collaborated on our research. I have our newsletter. We have the research obviously on our website. So we collected in several different ways. And women are amazing. And the women we are asking to help us with are women who are in this phase of life. Mostly, we talk to women between 35 and I'd say 60, 65. That's
Yeah.
probably the women who are the core. And and the reason I say that is because and Daphne, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but when women will ask me what I do for a living, I'm like, "Oh, menopause space, I love it. I'm doing research and I'm a nutritionist." And they're like, "Oh, I'm way past that." And I'll say, "No, no, no." Like, and these are women, let's say they're postmenopausal, but maybe they're like 65 and up, or maybe sometimes even in their 50s, they're like, "Oh, I'm way past that." And I'm like, "You're not way past it. Because once you're in menopause for the rest of your
Exactly.
life." So by saying you're way past it, and I have a book coming out next year, and I talk about this because I feel like when we say we're way past it, we dismiss the fact that now more than ever, we need to pay attention to nutrition, lifestyle. What are we putting on our body? Supplements, all of this need to play a big role, right? So I always say you're never past it, you're actually in it for the rest of your life.
I love that. Reframing is important, and you're 100% correct. I hear the same thing, that they got to menopause and then they think they're done, as
Yeah.
opposed to once you're in menopause, you're there forever. But how do you continue to optimize your health? Because the decline in hormones is something that will persist. and those changes are going to have an ongoing impact. So now it's time to, if you haven't doubled down on all of the pillars, your mindset, your nutrition, your movement. I love that you focus on toxin awareness, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that too as it relates to life in general. But you're also want to hear about your new book, understanding that there's always an opportunity to make an impact, no matter whether you're 35 or 75. We need to get that message out.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, very important, and the more we talk about it, and the less of a stigma it becomes, and I say that because there still is a bit of a stigma, and although in North America we talk very openly about it, which is amazing, I always say, like, Gen X are gonna we're gonna be the last generation that is taken by surprise.
Correct.
So, perimenopause and menopause, because when we look at millennials, we look at Gen Zs, I mean, the way they speak openly about their periods and about it's just like it's so not like nonchalant. Like my girls, I have a 14-year-old and I have a 20-year-old and a 22-year-old son, but I'll listen to my 14-year-old talk about their periods and they're like, ah, whatever. And they're like boys in the room, they're like, yeah, we had our periods. I was like, it's so not a big deal. And I'm like, I love this. I love this because there's no shame, there's no stigma, and that's where I'm hoping that we get to with perimenopause and menopause eventually, because they're not gonna go for the stigma. They're gonna be like, whatever, it's just part of what we're doing. So I look at Gen Xers as we're the teachers, we're the mentors for these younger generations, which is really exciting.
And is that why you use the term menopause reimagined? So if you look at menopause as your mom or your grandma may have experienced it, how are when you think about reimagining menopause, what do you want this to be, or what is the message that you want women to take away from all of the work you're doing about this is not an end, this is something, it's just in the next phase. Why is it different than puberty, pregnancy, postpartum? It's just another phase of life.
100%. I mean, you got it. It's exactly why we use the term reimagine menopause or menopause reimagined, because it's not what like when we think about what at least I can speak to myself with my mom and my grandmother is, they never spoke about it. And I'm sure that's
Mhm.
the same for I'd love to hear your story too, Daphne. And you'll have to come on my podcast and tell us your story. So, it's just it wasn't spoken about. The baby boomers, like they just it wasn't a conversation they had. And I've spoken to my mom so many times about it because of what I do. And she would say that she brought it up with her doctor, but never with her friend. Her mom never spoke to her about it. And there was that kind of that shame. And even when I speak to my Gen X friends, they'll say, especially women who are in C-level positions, let's say they're in a boardroom with a lot of men, is that they'll get embarrassed too. Or if they start having a hot flash, it's like kind of like the elephant in the room, but nobody speaks about it. And so for me, I want to reimagine menopause as there's no stigma. It's a nat like we just said, it's a natural part of life, and it's no big deal. It's like you're having a hot flash. It's like, yeah, just having a hot flash. It's menopause. I'm in menopause. Like no big deal. But it will take some time for us to get there, but it's already changing, which is so nice to see.
I agree. And I love the fact that your daughters are leading the charge. Probably secondary to having a mom who is so open about removing the stigma from something that should never have been stigmatized in the first place.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you for that.
Now, the top 10 symptoms on, if I'm remembering from your list on your website, most of them are brain symptoms, or at least, you know, the majority. So when I talk to the women in our program, I really emphasize the fact that the midlife changes aren't your reproductive organ changes. These are total body changes. But the fatigue, the brain fog, the memory, the mood changes, these are all changes that are occurring in our brain. How are you what did you do to help address some of these symptoms? Because these are also ones that I hear commonly. And what types of recommendations do you provide to your clients, to those who are using your supplements in terms of how can I start to either get ahead of those symptoms when I know I'm in that early phase of maybe late 30s, early 40s, or someone like me heading into my 60s, and I still have those periods. I still get hot flashes. I still have brain fog. So it's not going away. It's not as bad, but I want to, anything I do to my body, I want to make sure I'm doing things that are healthful. And so supplements are validated supplements are something I like to share with our community, but like you, I'm very particular about what I put in my body and what I recommend to those who listen to us, what they may consider as valid interventions to help with some of their symptoms.
Yeah.
And there was a lot that I just said there. So
So I'll start with the first part, which was the brain part. And so when we did our research, it was very surprising to me. I'd have to say that I didn't expect it, is that out of the top 10 most common 50% are cognitive or mental health or brain related. In fact, we can even go as far as 90%. And that to me was shocking because when we think about symptoms, we think about the physical symptoms.
yeah.
But when you look, and I could share what those top 10 symptoms are. It's fatigue, lack of energy, like I mentioned, brain fog, sleep issues,
Yep.
memory problems, memory lapses or forgetfulness, anxiety, loss of or low libido, lack
Mhm.
of concentration, joint pain, lack of focus, and hot flashes. So maybe other than joint pain, you could really tie all of those back to some type of cognitive or mental health or brain symptom, right? Or brain connection. So number one, we were really surprised to see that. So that you don't see that anywhere in terms of people talking about that. So I think just knowing that is important because one of the most common symptoms that or most common complaints or comments that I hear from women in our community is, I feel like I'm going crazy.
Mhm.
I feel like something took over my body. I just don't feel like myself. And a lot of women who have shared with us, we have a doctor visit survey where we asked women what were prescribed to them when they did share about, their symptoms with their healthcare provider. And they said, number one, it's kind of neck and neck right now, but number one is antidepressants. And number two is hormones, but they're very close, but still antidepressants lead the charge. And I hear it all the time from women that they're being prescribed these antidepressants. And so for us, to answer your question about what you could do about it is and there's also the different phases, right? So during perimenopause, at least I could speak for me,
Mhm.
it was so much worse. The brain fog, the memory loss, the lapses, the fatigue, all of that was way worse in peri. But we do know, according to our research, when we broke it down between perimenopause and menopause, is that women in perimenopause are more likely to experience fatigue, anxiety, a lack of patience, headaches or migraines,
Mhm.
an emotional weepiness and social anxiety. And then women in menopause are more likely to report sleep issues, hot flashes, night sweats, slower metabolism, changes in body shape. That's where weight gain comes in, and inflammation. So we know, according to our research, is that there are different areas that where it might be more prevalent than it will be, or different stages where it's more prevalent than not. And what are the things that we could do? So the way I look at it is that as a nutritionist, I always want you to look at what you're eating because that's the foundation of everything. We can't out supplement good nutrition, right? So it's the most
Amen.
important thing. Yeah. So the most important thing. So what are you putting in your body? What are you choosing to eat every day? So these are the decisions that we want to look at in terms of, and there is a lot of changing and adjusting that may have to be done because what worked for us before we got here may not work for us anymore. Like I was saying before, I was eating the same, I was exercising the same, I was doing everything the same, but it just wasn't working for me anymore. I couldn't have a glass of wine anymore because now it triggered major hot flashes,
Mhm.
night sweats for me, and it was waking me up in the middle of the night. So I just had to rethink how I was doing things. And even caffeine, like I was never one to have a cup of coffee in the morning. I'm more of a tea person, but I still like coffee. And if I have a cup of coffee, it might trigger a hot flash for me. So these are things like caffeine, it might trigger that for me. So these are things to be more mindful of. And there are options. So, for example, I know for a lot of women that cup of coffee is a non negotiable, but maybe instead of having like 3 or 4 cups, maybe you want to look at something that's an alternative to coffee that may not have that caffeine, that may not trigger that hot flash.
Mhm.
So it's about making adjustments. It's about making different decisions, choices, to how to what can help improve how you're feeling. And I think that's the important thing, right? Because we are the captain of our own ship. We could decide what we're putting in and on our body. And there's ways to do it on a budget. There's ways to do it to be mindful about it. So I think that for me is the most important thing. So let's look at how much protein we're getting. Very important. Now I know you talk about plant-based, so you would be an expert in terms of what those plant-based options are for protein, but making sure we're getting, at least I say if you're under 140 pounds, 20 to 25 grams of protein per meal. If you're
Great.
more than 140 pounds, then you wanna look at 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. That's minimum. Then you wanna add in based on other things, other factors. How active are you? How tall are you? Like, all the different things that come in. So but that's your base in terms of we need to make sure we're getting enough protein for brain health, for blood sugar, for muscles, for bones, for so many different things. So then we're more susceptible to muscle loss, so you wanna make sure that you're getting enough protein in your diet. Making sure you're drinking enough. Hydration is really important. Helps with that brain, right? With our brain health, which again, when we know that it's 90% of the top 10 symptoms, making sure you're hydrated is really important for your brain. Making sure you're getting enough omega 3s, whether that's through your food or that's through supplements or both. I do both. So these are all things that to take into account, making sure you're getting enough vegetables, eating the rainbow. Low glycemic fruits like berries are fantastic. So, keeping in mind the different nutrition tools that we have are really important. And I'll stop there because I know that you might have follow-up questions, but just making sure from a nutrition standpoint that we're really on point and looking at whole foods, like really important. And then we can get into the additives if you want. I know you talked about the toxins. We can get into that as well if you like.
No, Andrea, I'm nodding my head because our philosophies are very similar in
Yeah.
terms of what are the lifestyle first. And lifestyle is the biggest lever that we can pull in terms of optimizing our health going into perimenopause and on the backside, perimenopause into menopause,
Yeah.
because the bone changes, the musculoskeletal changes, those are going to happen. Some hormone related, some age related. But if you optimize what you're putting in your body, that's one thing that you're in control of that will persist regardless of your age. And as I was listening to you, 2 questions, and I can't remember when I completed your surveys, are you able to stratify the data set that you have based on, um, I don't wanna say dietary preference in terms of are the symptoms different in women who are omnivores versus vegetarians, vegans? And I don't know if you can discern to that level of granularity. And then the other question that popped up, and I love data, um, because I have seen that some communities, so there may be some racial or ethnic differences in terms of how menopause is experienced too, that may help guide women as they're going through this phase? Is your data set robust enough yet to make those types of discernments?
So the answer is no, we have not looked at, diet, and we have not looked at in terms of, cultural or how women like, so different races, how women like, we know that the data exists out there.
Mhm.
We know women of color will be in perimenopause longer and or will have worse symptoms than women who are white. I know that there's different research that exists even around Latino women,
Mhm.
and we have not done that research. So here's what I'm going to say: partner with me. We should collaborate and we can launch two different surveys and we can actually look at that. So we haven't done it ourselves, but I would be really happy to collaborate with you and perhaps launch two different surveys that we can look at dietary because I actually find that really fascinating. So for me, I find the diet part, the plant-based versus the animal-based, I would be really curious to know how women are experiencing their symptoms because you hear but there's so many things that come into play. So I'd
I know.
love to know what is your blood type, right? Like what are things that actually influence it as well? So that's something I'd love to look at, and I'd be happy to collaborate with you if that's something you wanna do.
I think it'll be fascinating. I mean, partly, and again, just understanding, listening to everything that you share with your communities around we're very much protein first. The benefits of eating the rainbow, getting your phytoestrogens, which can have multiple benefits, that there's so many things we can get from food that we don't really think about food as medicine, which food really can be medicinal in many ways. And that everything else that we are thinking about, whether it's hormones, whether it's supplements, they are supplemental. And the nutritional changes and the movement changes may also be able to help counteract some of the things that women frequently seek our services for and would love to hear what may be, what brings women to Morphus because usually they're coming to see us for weight management. So the body composition changes that are occurring are something that none of us prepare for because as you shared, you're doing the same thing, eating the same thing, moving the same way, and yet all of a sudden you hit this wall and you're just like, "What the heck?" So when women come into our program, some are already plant-based, some are plant curious. They may transition to becoming, and I won't say vegan, I'll say plant-based because I don't know that their entire lifestyle, that they've become fully vegan, but their nutritional approach is plant-based, and the I've seen a lot of positive benefits from women from adding more soy to their nutrition and doing many of the lifestyle recommendations. There's so many positive benefits that I think are not recognized as very low-lying, cost-effective interventions that any one of us can make that will improve not just our symptoms, but will improve our health overall.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think that would be really interesting. Now, there is obviously there's research out there regarding plant-based. I know there was a big study that was just released, I think last year it was,
Yeah.
and, yeah, so I know that there is a lot, but again, I feel like it really depends on the individual and like, different things or different factors that come into play. So, yeah, I think that would be really fascinating to know.
But going back to your other passion project, which is from a supplement perspective, I'd love to learn more about the supplement line that you've developed. So we talk a lot about just to recap the core pillars, we call them our plant powered blueprint mindset and want to go back to how you approach mindset with women that you're either coaching or that are part of your programs. But nutrition and movement, toxin awareness, community, sleep, stress management, and then data. Those are kind of the core principles that we use in our coaching program in order to help women, whether they're in menopause or not. But the approach for supplementation is really secondary to everything else. So you have to have the foundation strong before you start to add anything on top of it. But it sounds like you did a lot of intentional investigation around what supplements may be helpful for women. And if you can share some of what you found, how that has informed your supplement line, and then what are core recommendations for women who are looking for a they've optimized all the other things, but now they're looking for that icing on the cake that may help with some residual symptoms.
Yeah, sure. So the way I look at supplements is I feel like because our food is nutritionally devoid of nutrients, we know this, we know that that's not news for a lot of us, is that our soil isn't the same. The farming practices are a little bit different, conventional farming practices. So I feel like and because there are other factors too, like we're not absorbing as much as perhaps as we did before because our digestion is shifting and changing. So there's so many things going on in our body, or maybe a lot of women will say that they don't eat a lot anymore. So their appetite has changed. So there are
Yeah.
different reasons that we may not be getting the nutrients that we need. Or perhaps when you are eating that you're not eating whole foods and you're choosing other things, which by the way, there's no judgment either way. It's just understanding why our body might need certain nutrients like vitamins and minerals and antioxidants that you just may not be getting in your everyday
Mhm.
nutrition. So for me, there are core supplements or foundation supplements that I believe every woman in perimenopause and menopause need to be taking. And that's why it's part of our line at Morphus. So number one is magnesium. It is
Yeah.
a non-negotiable, like truly a non-negotiable. Absolutely, if you can get it from your food, please eat magnesium-rich foods, leafy grains, salmon, avocados, like, these are important to be getting in your diet. But if you also or you're having different symptoms, we know magnesium helps to support over 400 or even 600, I've read, different enzymatic functions and processes in our body. We need magnesium. And when we're stressed, which we know 66% of us are more stressed now than we were before, according to our published research, and we're less able to cope with it, we know that we deplete magnesium when we're stressed. And when magnesium is depleted, we become more stressed. So it becomes this vicious cycle that is very hard to kind of maintain. So taking magnesium every single day through your food and through a supplement to me is really important.
Yes.
And then people will ask me what type of magnesium because there are so many different, and it becomes very confusing, I find, for women.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, take this, take that. I simplified it for women because we looked at the different forms of magnesium. We chose a magnesium bisglycinate. It's a buffered chelate. It has a tiny bit of oxide in it and it's buffered. So we absorb it really well and it's gentle on our stomach.
Mhm.
So the reason I chose bisglycinate is because I look at it as the superhero with the red cape on. It's really one of those it's one of those minerals of magnesium bisglycinate. It's that all-around mineral. It's attached to the amino acid glycine. Glycine helps us to relax. So you're kinda getting that 2 in 1.
Yep.
It helps us to relax. It helps with anxiety, it's stress. Like, it really just helps overall and helps to calm the body. It's also incredible before sleep. So taking our magnesium, you could take it during the day for more energy, or you could take it before bed to help you sleep better. So I do not go to sleep without taking my magnesium bisglycinate, the Morphus magnesium bisglycinate. And I take it with our sleep bus because our sleep bus is also magic. It has some melatonin in it. We don't make melatonin as much when we're in our 50s and 60s and beyond. So taking that with that, plus it has other ingredients that just help to calm and relax us. We know the number one reason we're waking up at night is because of stress. It's the
Mhm.
number one reason. You're lying awake between 2 and 4 a.m. You can't go back to sleep. It is because of stress. We need to regulate our nervous system. Magnesium bisglycinate is amazing for that. So that helps. Number 2 is omega 3s. Very important to take our omega 3s. Omega 3s are anti inflammatory. There are plant-based options that you could take from algal oil, and then there are also fish-based oil. So for those who obviously are not plant-based, you can also take fish oil. To me, omega-3s are a non-negotiable because of the inflammation we're more prone to in this phase of life. It's amazing for brain health, heart health, skin health, eye health. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It also helps with stress. Like, so to me, again, another non-negotiable. It's also incredible for dry eyes, dry ears, any type of dryness because it helps to hydrate you from the inside out. So again, non-negotiable for me because a lot of women will say they have the itchy ears,
Itchy ears.
watery eyes. If your eyes are watery, all of these are related to the dryness. And then I'm also a big fan of taking fiber, and in particular, soluble fiber, because our body is changing and shifting. Again, some women will have issues with constipation, loose stools, gas, bloating. You know, you might have so just anything like that, you know, acid reflux, anything that's irritating your digestive system. So making sure that we are going to the bathroom every single day is really important. So we launched our Morphus Fiber Us. It's a
Mhm.
soluble fiber that helps to get your bowels moving. It also helps us to absorb our minerals better, which is incredible. And for those people, so for any of your listeners who are on any of the GLP-1s and you're constipated, it's again a non-negotiable. You should be taking a soluble fiber every single day. We sell so many to women who are on GLP-1s because it changes again, it might make you more constipated. So just taking a scoop or two a day of Fiber Us has 6.5 grams of fiber per serving. It has no taste, it has no grit, it has no smell, there's no clumping, there's none of that. It's awesome and it disappears completely into liquid, hot or cold. So those are the 3, in my opinion, the non-negotiables and why we launched them. I also feel that a non-negotiable, we do not sell this, but I feel like every woman should be taking it, is vitamin D with vitamin K2, MK7. Another
100%.
non-negotiable. I'm sorry, ladies, please, if you are not taking vitamin D, first of all, go get your vitamin D tested. Find out what your number is. You want to be in the optimal range. So you want to make sure that you are taking a vitamin. Now, I know because you're plant-based, I don't know if you do D2, but I know that vitamin D3, I know there's research on both in terms of absorption, but I take a vitamin D3. And then you want to look at taking the vitamin K2, MK7, because what that does is it ushers calcium into the bones. And because we're more prone to osteoporosis and weaker bones, we want to make sure we're getting that vitamin K2 with the D3. Take it together. Think of it as like a partnership. They're a combo. Don't take vitamin D on its own.
Yes. I do recommend a vitamin D3 plus K2. On
Okay.
your top ones are the only one you didn't mention that I think I would have put on the list. I would love to hear your thoughts is creatine. Um,
So creatine, I've been looking at the research. Yeah, so I hear great things about creatine in terms of brain health, obviously for muscles. It's been studied for I think over 30 years. I haven't done my deep dives into creatine. So, but I have looked at some, like I haven't done the deep dive, but I've looked at some of the, like really quickly looked at some of the research, and I follow people who believe creatine is great for menopause. So yeah, like I think that it's definitely something I'm going to look into more, but yeah, I'm a fan.
but I'm the same as you. I have my magnesium before I go to bed, my omegas every day, D3, K2. These are non-negotiables for me. And so thank you for having a line that has tested supplements because I think I always encourage people to make sure they're using products that are third party tested, that have some evidence behind that you're getting what is actually in the bottle, because frequently that is not the case. And then you're wondering why, I've been taking this supplement for months and there's no effect. There's a reason for that at times.
100%. And we actually, it was so important to us that we had a third party company that we work with. So all of our supplements were third party tested, and we partnered with the one of the largest labs in the world. It's called Eurofins, and they test all of our products. So everything that we say is in there. The amounts are in there. They're effective, and that you're so right, Daphne, because you could take things, and if it's not as regulated. So like that's why we have to be super careful who you're buying products from. Call the companies. Like you could call us, and myself, my partner, like one of our team members will answer the phone. Like if you have questions, we're going to answer it. We pride ourselves on our customer service. Like we want you to feel better. So we want to sell you products that actually work. So if you're buying something that is super cheap, or turn the bottle around, see how much is in there. Make sure that there's an efficacious dose in the product. So that way you know you're going to actually it's going to work, and follow the directions on the bottle. And if you have questions about that, again, call the company, ask the company. And if it's not, if you feel like it's, let's say, it's like on our bottle of magnesium, it says take, I think it says take 2 a day,
Uh-huh.
but you can take more. But sometimes you can't just put that on the bottle. But like something like magnesium, you might need more than, so each capsule has 150 milligrams of magnesium, but you might need 600 milligrams. So listen to your body, but don't do that for all supplements. Call the company, ask them, do your research. So, and I think that's really important that you understand what you're putting in your body.
And that leads into another adventure that you've been exploring, which is understanding. So unjunk your was it unjunk your food was the title of your book?
Unjunk your junk food.
Unjunk your junk food, which is even better because I am finding even with those in our community that are plant-based, that we're getting a lot of plant-based junk food now. And
Yeah.
so the concept of junk food, and I'm sure you have a lot of conversations around ultra processed foods, there's a whole spectrum now.
Yeah.
But when you're coaching women around unjunking your junk food, how are you what is your key message in terms of making decisions around what you're purchasing, what you're eating, and how that contributes to your overall health?
Such a good question. So the way I've always said, back even in 2011 when we launched on Junk Your Junk Food, is read the label. Understand. So if you're not buying whole, like if you're buying foods with simple ingredients, chances are your body's going to know how to digest that.
Mhm.
But if you're buying foods that have, 100 different ingredients, I mean, those are ultra processed foods. Now, I'm not saying you have to be 100% whole foods. No. I mean, I always look at the 80-20 rule. And if you're trying to eat something and trying to fix how you're feeling so you could thrive, you may change it to like 90-10, or you do it whatever makes you feel good. And that is the key. You have the power to adjust it however you want. I just want you to be mindful of what you're putting in your body. When you're shopping, I want you to pick up a product and read the ingredients. Don't worry about the nutrition facts panel. So that's secondary, how many calories it has. Yes, we want to look at, of course, how much trans fat and how much sodium, and but I want that to be the second thing. So don't worry about it initially. Initially, I want you to pick it up, turn the product over, and read the ingredient list.
Mhm.
Does the ingredient list, does it make sense? Can you pronounce the words? Now, there are some vitamins that you may not be able to pronounce, but for the most part, does it read like it's something you would be making, like using whole foods, right? So
Right.
that's what's really important. Then go to the nutrition facts panel and look at the sodium, look at the sugar content, look at the other things. The other like, the way I look at it is that there are certain ingredients, and though there's so many ingredients, that it's really hard to avoid them all. But there are certain ingredients that I want you to be mindful of and aware of when you're eating, especially in this phase of life, that can possibly trigger or exacerbate your symptoms.
Hmm.
For example, something like high fructose corn syrup, and you'll
Mm.
see that written on the label. In the US, it's very clear that it is high fructose corn syrup. In Canada, it's known as glucose fructose. So
Oh,
when you're
interesting.
reading a product, yeah, it's different. So when you're reading a product and you see it either has high fructose corn syrup or fructose glucose, I want you to be aware that it can contribute to insulin resistance, which again, we're more prone to in this phase of life, which is pre-diabetes, like right before that diabetes can come into play. It's the step before type 2 diabetes. So you want to be mindful of high fructose corn syrup. It also can cause issues with our heart health and with weight gain. So just be mindful of that. Next thing would be trans fats. Now, trans fats have come a long way, thankfully, but there are certain ingredients that are still allowed to be used as loopholes. So, like mono and diglycerides, certain things that you could, thankfully, partially hydrogenated oils have been removed, but you could still find them in some products. So, just be mindful of that. MSG, monosodium glutamate. That
Mhm.
has, I don't know, over 50, or I think my friend Leah Segedy from Mamavation said like over 100 different names. Like there's so many different names for it. And again, how does it make you feel? So if you are already having hot flashes and you're sweating all the time, perhaps eating something with MSG straight up, or maybe, and autolyzed yeast extract, which is a derivative, less harsh form, but maybe that is contributing to your hot flashes. So just again, being mindful of what you're putting in your body. And we have a list of all, you can even search Mamavation MSG, and she has a list of all the different names for MSG. She's an amazing researcher.
Wow.
And then you could look at things like artificial colors and artificial flavors and, different preservatives and seed oils. I would say, to me, the seed oils is a really big one. So that was put on the map by Dr. Kate Shanahan. She's a medical doctor.
Mhm.
She's incredible. And she looked at seed oils, and what she found is that they could lead to oxidative stress, which could lead to inflammation in the body. Again, we're more prone to that. She was just published, actually, her research was just published in a medical journal, and we know that seed oils, and there's a lot of controversy around seed
Oh,
oils,
yes.
which is amazing to me because there's a lot of people who are very pro seed oils, and then there are scientists and researchers like Kate Shanahan who are like, avoid them. I will share my personal story with them. And I find that seed oils are inflammatory for me. If I eat
Mhm.
seed oils, so what are seed oils? Soy, canola, safflower, sunflower, corn oil, and then you've got cottonseed oil. Like Kate, she calls them the hateful eight, I think. So Kate has the full list on her website. But canola, soy, corn, those are like the big ones. Vegetable oils, which it might be also named on the label. So again, you want to know what are the vegetable oils that they're using. These can create that inflammation. So for me, when I eat seed oils, I feel like I have like these tingling sensations on the bottom of my feet.
Oh, interesting.
Or if I eat too much of it, it'll actually manifest as pain for me, joint pain.
Uh-huh.
Again, joint pain was on that top 10 list. We know that it's a symptom. So if you have any type of pain in your body, I encourage you to read the labels, go to Dr. Kate's, I think it's drkate.com. I think that's her website, but it's Kate, C-A-T-E, Kate Shanahan. And she lists what those seed oils are. And I would look to see if they're in the products that you're eating. So if you're cooking, grapeseed oil, that's another one. So if you're cooking at home with grapeseed oil or canola oil or vegetable oil or any type of oils that can create that inflammation, these are oils other than avocado, olive, or coconut oil, which is fine. And so is palm oil. By the way, if it's sustainably sourced, palm oil is kind of neutral. Or if you're cooking with something like ghee or tallow, like those are all the animal-based fat. Again, sorry, you're plant-based. I know you can't
Okay.
get it if you do eat animal-based products, like if you're using or like butter, like these are things that are better to use in terms of oils if you do eat animal foods. But we want to avoid those seed oils because they can cause inflammation. And for me, it causes major pains in my joints.
That's interesting because I don't know that a lot of women make that correlation, because those seed oils are found in a lot of processed foods, which is why, your advice about look at the label. So shop the perimeter of the supermarket, but when you're in the middle part of the supermarket, look at the label and see what it is you're putting in your body.
Very important. And yeah, that's Michael Pollan, shop the perimeter. But yes, I mean, but we do want to buy processed foods or ultra processed foods. I mean, oil is processed, right? It's the ultra processed foods that we want to be mindful of. Again, I'm not saying you have to not eat it at all. I'm just saying be mindful when you do, right? And when you're putting it in, and also maybe you want to keep track, on your phone, keep track of what your symptoms are. Or if you had, let's say, a piece of gum, artificial sweeteners is another one. Again, tons of controversy around that. But I always say if there's controversy about something, then why don't you err on the side of caution, especially when there's alternatives for it, right? So we know that there's monk fruit. We know that there's other options that we can have that don't have the same controversy around it. And if you love a little bit of sweetening in your coffee, that's great. But maybe looking at something different than the artificial sweeteners like sucralose or aspartame, maybe look at something like maybe a little bit of monk fruit or stevia, right? So there's different ways that we could go. And again, everything in moderation.
So knowing the connection that you're making between nutrition and symptomatology, I'm I'm assuming that part of what you're thinking is that these are gut microbiome changes that may be occurring that result in secondary either signal pathways up to the brain, because pain often starts in the brain, or local inflammatory changes that occur because of what we're ingesting. But it goes back to the fact that your gut is more than just a digestive tract, that
Mm.
it is allowing what you're bringing in to get out into your body in many different ways.
Yes, gut, hormones, like, there's so many things that are at play, so that's why focusing on gut health, that's why Fiber Us is so important for us, like, focusing on gut health is really important, especially when it comes to the gut-brain connection through the vagus nerve, so yes, very important in terms of, looking at it in terms of everything is changing as we go into this phase of life, so doing what we can control, because we can't control everything, but what we can control is what we're putting in our mouth and also what we're putting in our body on our body.
Well, in and on, yeah. I would and I know you recently had someone on your podcast talking about skin. I don't know if it was One Skin or,
Yes, OneSkin, yeah, it was great, and that was really cool. She was saying how they use, like, human skin. Like, I thought that was weird, like, not in the product, just to test to test the product. I know you're gonna think, "Oh my god, what?" No, no, just to test the product, which I thought was really interesting. So they were testing to see what it actually does to help repair the skin, which I thought is really interesting.
much better than doing animal testing because then we it's more one for one, I hope. Andrea, what is next for you? I mean, your body of work is so impressive. Where are you going personally, professionally, in terms of moving forward with Morphus and helping spread the message and helping advance the conversation? Because my worry, 24, 25, there's been a lot of conversation around menopause. And what I find is that things become trendy, then they tend to go away. But
Mm.
this is not going away. And the fact that these conversations need to be sustained is important. And what is your role in sustaining the momentum that we've achieved over the past few years? And then what are what are the next things that you're thinking about embarking on?
Well, that's a great question. So for me, we're working on something actually really exciting right now to help continue with the education, because I think for me, because the education is the most crucial part, because when we understand what's happening to our body, then we can take action. So for the longest time, like, I was in perimenopause for 14 years, 11 of which I had no idea. So I started in my mid-30s at 36, and I went into menopause around 50. So for all those years, like I mentioned before, like the 5 years until I didn't know I had a
Mhm.
baby at 41. I didn't know I was in perimenopause and got pregnant twice. Unfortunately, I lost one of the babies, but I got pregnant again and now I have my daughter, my 14-year-old. But I didn't know anything. And I think that's the biggest thing, is when we have all these changes happening. So for me, education and helping women understand what's happening to their bodies is the most important thing. So I'm working on something with our company, but also have my book coming out next year, which really looks at nutrition and different strategies for sleep and stress management. It talks about our research. So for me, it's the education is the number one thing to start at. Obviously, the solutions are really huge too, and there are different solutions. We talked a lot about this over the last little bit on the podcast, but like looking at neuronutrition, looking at lifestyle, looking at stress management, looking at how you're exercising, focusing on those weight bearing exercises, maybe a little less cardio, right? So
Mhm.
still, maybe doing things like going into the forest and spending time in nature to help with forest bathing and just relaxing and reducing that cortisol. Like, what are things that make you and help to stimulate your parasympathetic nervous system so that you can help yourself relax? I've actually recently started implementing in my morning routine, grounding myself every morning. And can I tell you, Daphne, it
Interesting.
makes such a difference for my day. Like, it's so interesting to me. Now, I have a spiritual practice. So I love, in the morning, I say my mantras and I do my things. Like, I have this whole thing that I do. And I love things like EFT. I don't know if you've spoken about
Mhm.
emotional freedom technique, but just things to now, like, ground me before I start my day, and I find it really has a positive impact on my day, and I find when I don't do it, I feel it. I feel it. I can't deal with things as well. I fly off the cuff a little bit quicker, whereas I've actually grounded myself in the morning, I'm able to deal with things a little bit better.
And just in case people don't know what grounding is, can you explain what you do in terms of grounding?
So you could actually do, like, actual grounding on the earth, but
Yeah,
what I'm referring to is really more grounding myself. So I'm just
got it.
taking some deep breaths. Like, you can go on, so grounding in terms of the earth, like there are grounding mats you can do, walk barefoot on the grass, like you can do things like that. But I'm referring to really like just kind of setting my intention for the day and
Understood.
taking some deep breaths, calming my nervous system. And in the morning is a good time, because if you get that restorative sleep, so if you're taking Morphus magnesium and our Morphus sleep us, you're going to have that amazing sleep when you wake up. So you're already hopefully in that relaxed state. You can take out a journal, write some mantras, write out your intentions, what you're hoping for the day. There's some great mantras out there setting the tone for the day. Like, I found like a couple of mantras online. I love this one. It's like, universe, show me how good it's going to get today. Like, show me how good my day can get. Saying something, I believe I'm going to have a wonderful day. And just
Mhm.
saying things like that, and trying to start your day off with some positivity can be very helpful. Repeating it once, repeating it twice, just trying to set the intention of the day that it's going to be a good day. Now, it can be hard when you're in the throes of your symptoms, like I was for many years. So I understand what that feels like. And you might think, like, there are days when I couldn't even get out of bed, let alone, do mantras. So
Oh,
I get it in terms of if you're suffering and you're in the throes and you're in the weeds and you can't see the light at the end of that tunnel. I want to encourage you to still say a mantra or two.
it's fascinating that you do this because what you're saying, even though you're a mom, you're a wife, you're a businesswoman, you make time for you in the day. And that's something that I think many women ignore, that you have to make time for you.
Yeah, and for the longest time I didn't, because, now my kids are a little bit older, but I do believe carving out, even if it's 5 minutes, like, it
Yes.
doesn't have to be a long practice, something. And I remember reading this and hearing this for the longest time, and I'd be like, "Yeah, yeah, sure." Like, I don't even have 5 minutes till I go to the bathroom by myself, right? When especially when you have, kids and you're busy and you have lots going on. But even if it's a 5-minute walk around the block, even if it's just sitting and looking at a YouTube video of a forest or running water or the ocean, like whatever, or a photo of you touching a tree or whatever, just closing your eyes and imagining something that going back to a time that you absolutely loved and made you really happy, or a person, even if it's 5 minutes, do something that helps to ground you for the day, because it really will make a difference in how you feel.
100% agree. And do you have a bedtime routine also?
I don't have a routine so much that I have a ritual, but what I'll do is I will get into bed, so I'll wash up and then I'll get into bed, and I have some mantras that I say. I look at on my phone, I have like this album where I like to say a couple of things to myself, and then I'll close my eyes. And there's one thing that I do say every single night and every morning when I wake up, even before I get out of bed. It's called Ho'oponopono. I don't know if you heard me talk about it, but it's this incredible Hawaiian
Oh, I've heard
spiritual
you. Yeah.
mantra, and it's 4 sentences, and this I highly recommend too, is if you wake up in the middle of the night, just keep repeating it to yourself. Don't open any lights. If you go to the bathroom, just come right back to bed, keep the room dark, and just keep repeating this mantra over and over again, and it's magic. So, it's "I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you." It's called Ho'oponopono. "I love you, I'm sorry, please forgive me, and thank you." And just keep saying it to yourself. So I say it when I wake up, I say it when I go to bed. So I just repeat certain things, and I find that it's really powerful. And again, it just helps me kind of like relax. And it's also powerful in the sense that it's a healing mantra, the Hawaiian healing mantra. There's a book you can buy called Ho'oponopono. You can read it. You can go onto YouTube and search Ho'oponopono. Um, Sandra Rolus, I think is her name, Rolus. She's an amazing meditation. It's a half-hour meditation using Ho'oponopono. So you could use it for different things. And it's one of my favorites.
Oh, I will put that in the show notes. That's new for me. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Andrew, I want to be respectful of your time because I know you're busy. Um, would you mind? I have one last question if you have a few more minutes.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
What is one key message that you hope everyone listening or watching today takes away from our conversation in terms of, and it can be multiple, how can they participate in your surveys? How can they learn more about the work you're doing? And how can they understand at an individual level how they can reimagine menopause?
I love that. So I'd say the biggest takeaway is you have the power to decide what you choose to do today. And I want you to be gentle with yourself. I want you to love yourself. And I want you to know that even if you're like in the thick of things, that things do get better, even though sometimes it feels like it doesn't, it does get better. I've been there with you. So if you're there, if you're, you're past that and you kind of have some symptoms here and there, I just want you to, if you feel them coming on, I want you to give yourself grace, and I want you to get to be patient with yourself. And I think that's a big one too, where, and this is work that I'm doing too, by the way. So forgiveness, self-forgiveness, that's a big one. Maybe we say something we don't want to say, or we didn't mean to say it that way, or it came out the wrong way. And we would, maybe you are hard on yourself for it. Be gentle with yourself, forgive yourself, and be, and self-forgiveness, I think, is one of the most compassionate and incredible things that we could give ourselves. And as women, I feel like a lot of the times we don't, right? We're hard on ourselves. So I feel like that's a big one. You can go to my website, which is We Are Morphus. So it's morphus.com. All of our supplements are there. All of our information is there. Our surveys are there under the research tab right at the top. You'll see it says research. So if you could fill out our surveys, we now have 14. We will have 15 very shortly. And hopefully you and I will be collaborating. So we'll have more as well. I would love that. And so if you could fill out our surveys, they literally each take under a minute. One of the things so all of our surveys, except for one, are all for us, for the women going through perimenopause and menopause.
Mhm.
One, though, which I will be published for in December, is our men's perspective of menopause.
Oh,
So
that's
you
interesting.
have a male partner, or someone you know who is male, who's with a woman in perimenopause or menopause, if you could send them that survey, that would be very helpful because we also want to understand what their experience is. So, and we submit it for publication and will be published for that in December, which is really exciting. So I'll have 7 published by the end of the year.
Con That is amazing. Congratulations again.
Thank you,
Uh,
thank you.
but even more important than the publications is the fact that you're applying it and you're educating women because a lot of the publications, I get frustrated if they're behind a paywall or people can't translate from, here's this published research. How do I actually apply what I'm reading into my everyday life? And
Mm,
you do that so well, both with your videos, with your podcast. You take it from a level that here's where the data, here's what we learn, here's what it means to you, and here's what you can do. And part of that doing is, as you said, be, you have to have grace. None of us are perfect. We are always evolving. And as we're changing from our 35-year-old self to our 85-year-old self, there will be different pieces and parts of us that will change, and we just have to accept how those changes are impacting us, but know that we are empowered to navigate how we experience midlife, and that shouldn't be dictated by society or by social media, but we have to give ourselves grace as we're figuring out how to reimagine who we are as we go through menopause.
I love it. Well, that is beautiful, and I agree.
Andrea, thank you. I feel like I could talk to you for hours, but would love to have you back when you're ready to talk about your new book, or if there's more data. We do have a community of men in the vegan gym, so I'll share the survey with them so that
Thank
if they
you.
have a female partner, maybe you can get some more information.
Thank you, and thank you for all the kind words you said. I'm so grateful, and I'm grateful to have been on your podcast, and I'm excited to do more, and congratulations to everything you're doing. Like, it's, like, so fantastic that you're reaching women and talking about a plant-based approach, which is a little bit different and unique, and I love that too, and there's room for like, to me, the more we know, the better, so thank you for everything that you're doing.
Appreciate you. And I can't wait to have you back, and thank you so much. Keep us keep us in mind if you ever need more research subjects, and always happy to partner with you.
Thank you, thank you.
Take care, Andrea. Wow, that conversation with Andrea was everything I had hoped for and more. If you're walking away with that feeling, "Why didn't I know this before?" Believe me, you are not alone. We covered a lot today, but let me see if I can summarize what I think are 3 key takeaways from my conversation with Andrea Donsky. The first, you are not crazy, you're just in it. The symptoms of perimenopause and menopause are real, and Andrea's research shows that there are over 100 of them. The second, there is no shame in midlife. We are the last generation that should be caught off guard by menopause. Let's normalize it and support each other through it. And then finally, it's the small shifts that create the biggest impact. Andrea reminds us that whether it's nutrition, lifestyle, or supplementation, it is what we do consistently that matters the most. Now, here's what you can do. First, you can comment below and share your biggest aha moment from today's conversation. Then, I'd love for you to share this video with a woman you know and love. And then finally, if you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast for more real conversations about things you can do today to support your health and wellness journey. I have another favor to ask you. You will find the links to Andrea's work, the Morphus community, and her research in the podcast description. Please take a few minutes to complete 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 of her surveys. The more women contribute to this body of knowledge, the more we'll understand what we can do to thrive through the midlife transition. And most importantly, remember, this is not the end. Menopause is just a new phase, and you get to design what it looks like for you. Thank you for joining me today on the Thrive on Plants podcast. I'm Dr. Daphne Bascom. And remember, keep thriving on plants and living with purpose. Be well. The information shared on the Thrive on Plants podcast is intended solely for educational and informational purposes. It is not medical advice, and it should never be used as a substitute for personalized guidance from a qualified healthcare professional. Always consult with your physician or healthcare provider before making any changes to your nutrition, exercise routine, supplement use, or your overall wellness plan. The opinions and advice shared by our guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of the Vegan Gym or its team. While we aim to bring you high-quality, thoughtful conversations, these perspectives are not intended to replace professional medical care. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, you have the power to thrive on plants and live with purpose.